We're moving to our Wednesday evening time slot. Delighted to say that it'll be recorded, especially for those in different time zones. So welcome for those who are here. What's up, Jose? Good to see you, Latif. Great to see you, Vienna. Long time no see. It's great to see a number of great old friends. First and foremost, Andreas in the house and Ken in the house. And thinking about your son. I hope they get the cup, Ken. Let's go. Good to have my partner there, Suzanne. It's great to see Nima, Mary Anthony. Long time, Mary Anthony. What is going on there? Great to have you there, John, Jacob, Jim. Great to see you, Danielle and Dana, Bill and Ampari. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight because, you know, for a lot of people who understand that when it comes to coaching, when it comes to mentoring, when it comes to speaking and influencing people, you've got to be able to find something worth measuring impact for. Y'all get that? If you're writing down notes, I'd start right there, is that if you can't measure it, you can't crush it. And that's the reality. So when it comes to understanding conversations around one's relationship to their financial lives, that makes a difference because you're able to actually do something about that gain. It's like losing weight. You have a really different relationship to a scale, to a gym, to the weights. It's not like something that's very esoteric, like romance or love, perhaps even a great relationship with your children or your parents. It's really hard to understand how exactly you measure the difference you make when you're on track to do so. So money, of all the games you can play, is a very cool game to play because it's one that you don't have to take personal. It's one that is measurable, and it is one worth playing. As it always goes, is that it's not like more money makes you happier, but it sure buys the things that do bring happiness. More fuel in the tank, more food in the belly, more opportunity at hand. So we're going to have a great conversation tonight about two converging conversations that I've been noticing converging on the landscape of coaching conversations that I've been having with my clients, that I've been noticing that I'm having an increasing level of, and I think you'll really appreciate it. But first, I just want to take a look and see who's in here one more time because we have a lot of people in here. First, old friend, what's up, Bill? Good to see you, man. What's going on? I haven't seen you forever. I've not seen Christian. Abdul Kabar, what's going on, man? I have not seen you in a long time. Great to see you here. Great to have you. Great to see Dr. John Huber in the house. Good to see you, my friend. Great to see Dr. Bobby Grassi in the house. Always in a very cool spot. Love that spot, man. It's where we roast marshmallows, I bet. Make things happen. And for everyone else that's here, it's really a delight to have you guys here. It's great to have you all joining me and having a chat around all things money. So let's get started. For a lot of you here, just by show of hands, and if you're in the chat room or want to give me an expression, who here notices themselves being a human being of influence, someone that actually is relied upon and or is sought out for coaching, for leadership, for inspiration of some kind? Just show of hands. Let me take a look around. And by the way, if you ain't got your hand up and you're in sales, marketing, right? If you're moving product or moving people, I mean, that matters. And if you're like Bob, you're moving teeth and cash. I mean, it's all going down with that guy, Charlie Brown. But the fact of the matter is that if you're a person of influence, you'll appreciate this conversation. And what this conversation really is about inside the confines of really helping people coach themselves through great change, there's one really confronting conversation I want to invite you to understand tonight. And it's one that's really rocking the world. Let me first start by saying this. I actually bumped into a very, very old friend of mine. I mean, from years ago. When I was in business school, I had a business mentor. He was assigned to my class because where my school was in the middle of an area where there were a number of really incredibly successful people. My business mentor at that time was a man by the name of Frank Stronach, an Austrian-born businessman who goes on to become one of the world's largest auto parts manufacturers in the history of automobiles. Isn't that crazy? An Austrian in Canada known as Magna International. He went on to make billions. I see you buff there, Bobby. He goes on to make billions, and it's incredible that this man has done so great, opening 150 factories around the world, employing over 250 million people. And he's made countless millionaires out of the stock in which he created. His company's market cap right as of now is 21 billion. That's with a B, dollar company. Now, I haven't seen Frank In all these years, decades, in fact, he went on to be incredibly successful. And I like to think that I went on to be not as successful, but successful in my own right. And we bumped into each other at a charity event. Now, at this ripe age, Frank Stronach is 90 years of age. That's right, 90. He saw me and said, "My God, Richard, is that you?" And I said, "Frank, what are you doing here? I thought you'd be in Austria at one of your country homes, just really enjoying your world. What's up, Rita?" And he went on to say, "Well, my gosh, I'm here to support this cause, but I got to ask you something. What are you up to?" So we start to chat. Now, why am I sharing this story with you? Because what I was astonished to hear was that Frank wasn't slowing down. Frank wasn't retiring. He's 90 years old, worth billions of dollars, and does not think retirement exists in his lifetime, quote unquote. Why I share this with you is because what we began to have a conversation on, and we've begun to create himself anew. Now put that in perspective. A 90-year-old man who's accomplished it all, who's got everything he'll ever need, and he says, "I would love to reinvent myself," at 90 years of age. Now, aside from the obvious statement, it's never too late. Aside from the obvious, I mean, you can never start too early. And aside from the fact that you can never be too successful to reinvent, here's the reality though. This is the existential conundrum that a lot of people will be confronting over their lifetime. And here it is, if you're writing down a note, it's the act of reinvention. Reinvention is a whole new way of pressing reset, not forget. Now, I know this is a financial conversation. This is a money mentorship call. So I'll make this about money in just a short, but the act of reinventing ourselves does have 4 domains of experience. In other words, if you're a coach, a mentor, a trainer, if you're a salesperson or someone who's of influence, you got to know that these 4 experiences in someone's life will always be confronted by the opportunity of reinventing themselves. Now, the first one is obvious. Who here by show of hands would admit that they've reinvented themselves personally? New style, new hairdo, new hair color. Perhaps if you're my good friend here, Jerry, a new Speedo for the new sexy summer of 23 coming. I know how you roll there, Jerry. It's good to see you. Donna, how you been, girl? Long time. What's up, Marlene? And so the reality for personal reinvention, it's about just you. It's about you and you alone. The way you see yourself, the way the world experiences you, and the way in which you experience life itself. The second is professional. And a lot of times we've come to know that people reinvent themselves professionally at least 3 times in a lifetime. 3 different vocations, 3 different careers, or 3 different restarts or refreshes in one's pursuit professionally. Now remember, professional isn't personal. Oftentimes we collapse the two. Just because you're a fireman doesn't mean you actually love the heat. Sometimes our vocation is sometimes from ourselves a vacation. So reinventing ourselves personally and professionally are those 2 first domains. The next one is financial. Now, financial is one that we notice now more than ever before that people want to have reinvented, because it's not just about money, but it's about having more of the things that matter most, like wealth and worth, right? Choice and freedom, knowledge and opportunity, not just cash. It's not just about the money. The fourth, though, and this is where they kind of tie together. This is where Frank Stronach actually, in fact, really resonates. You see, what you wouldn't know about Frank is he has 2 kids. One's estranged. And as a result of having 2 children, he has 2 grandkids. And he's left everything, rightfully so, to his children and his children's children. But then he asked the question, now what? You see, when we play a game, especially financially, that's only going to last a generation or 2, it's not big enough. You see, so reinventing ourselves personally, professionally, and financially, there is an outpost. One that becomes so big, it feels like you're compelled to do something about it. And this is what we call generational. Generationally reinventing yourself is having a view that it's not about you. Having a view that it's not about you. Wanting to better a future generation, wanting to better your children's position, being able to leave the place that you are now calling home a better place in the future. This is where social responsibility lives, global impact, lowering the climate that we've got, or perhaps reducing our carbon footprint. You'll get that. Just give me a thumbs up. So that constant experience of reinventing our experience in life will always rotate through those 4 domains. Personally reinventing ourselves, professionally, financially, and generationally. So why that's important is because what this becomes is it becomes a game of benchmarking. Now, why is benchmarking so important? Because the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, where am I? So let me pause for a moment. What's up, Nima? What's up, Aaron Dunn? Long time, man. Good to see you, buddy. So in able to benchmark yourself, you got to ask yourself, well, first of all, who am I even benchmarking to? How do you know you're doing well or doing good enough compared to, well, your idea of doing well? Think about that for a second. Ask a different way, given what you make, what you do, and how you're doing it, how do you know that you're doing well or not well at all? What's that compared to? What's that standardized against? How would you know? So what you've got to ask yourself, especially when you're coaching people, counseling people, raising money, finding investors, is you've got to get a sense of their GPS, their financial idea of benchmarking, because we do in fact do that. So let me pause for a second before I share it, and let me just slow down before I hurry up. By the way, Chris, we are outstanding on a call. I saw you and I just remember that we have not yet connected. So I want to make sure I say that out loud. So for a lot of you here, let me just ask from a couple of you here, who here feels like they're financially reinventing themselves? And if they are, what does that mean to you? I'm going to go to Bobby first because I saw him come up with a peace sign. That could be a gang symbol too, given he's from Michigan State. So I'm not going to play with him. What's up, Dr. Bobby in the house? How you doing,
What's up, Richie? How you doing, brother? Long time no listen, right?
I know.
We gotta connect, but no, I think early on in my career, I try to chase what an average dentist would be, right? So I lived life according to what I thought the average income of a dentist would be and stuff like that. And what I realized is that I was chasing the dollar and not really creating more for my life. So when you said, am I reinventing myself? I'm reinventing a legacy, not for myself, but for my family, trying to overcome all the demons I might have had as a kid, or the stuff that maybe was passed on from my upbringing. I had to kind of get through all that minutia, if you will. And I'm now reinventing myself, becoming a money mentor, a money manager for other dentists, becoming something even bigger than myself, to not only leave a legacy for my family, but maybe change the way dentists even look at entrepreneurship or look at how to really create more. Because so many times we got stuck living in the practice and we focused on how to generate revenue in a practice, but we didn't really realize how to create more wealth for more people and serve others. So I think where the transition is with me is, how do I create more, not only for myself, but for my family and for other people? So that's kind of the transition I am now. So I stopped working more in the practice, and now I'm trying to create a legacy outside the practice. So that's how, from a financial point of view, I kind of look at things. How does it impact the world, or impact my family, or impact others, versus just me competing with dentists, if you will?
Well, by the way, if anyone's not noticed, aside from the fact that Dr. Bobby is a mastery graduate, he's a master coach, and he's someone who's already coaching dentists on really what's a life after practice look like. What's interesting is he said 2 very important pieces. Number one is he did mention, by way of admission, that by financially reinventing himself, he did start with the question, what's the average dentist make? Like, what's the average do? So what would that suggest right out the gate as languaging? He's already playing the game called what? Average, right? Not what's the best dentist make or what's the worst that I can do. It's the average. He wants to just come on in. That's number one. Number two is, how do I create more for my family? There's where the generational impact actually can be heard. This is where he now knows that if he's playing not just for his wife, but his life, his kids, he knows that if he betters their position, he can better his children's position. And let's see how deep I can leave that impact. Because if I can set them up to be more successful, they'll have the freedom to do what they really wish to do and are compelled to do, whether it's God's work, because I know how you roll, Bobby, or whether it's the stuff that makes them really passionate and turns their lights on. That's the reality. So for Bobby, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But you see, Bob, you hit the nail on the head. I love that you started it off, man. Appreciate that. Did you want to say something else, man? when I unmuted you. There
I
you
know,
go.
I got you. Sorry, man. No, I just want to say you're absolutely correct. And when I said that early on in my career, I was just trying to beat the average, right? And when you realize it's not even, we're talking money right now, and that's why I even endorse this. So if y'all don't follow Richie, please, I don't care. I'll give a massive blast. He's the smartest financial guy ever. You're what changed my life. But with that said, a sidebar is that when you chase something outside yourself, even financially, that's when the magic happens. When you truly can remove yourself from the equation and you want to make the greatest impact, not only in your life, but your patient's life, or you serve other people, don't worry about the finances because it's going to come. When you lead from the heart, the rest.
Is it me or did he freeze? He froze, right? Oh, goodness. He was on a roll too. We just lost him. I'm going to go up to Vienna right now.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. Happy Wednesday.
What's up?
Hey, Rich. Yeah. So I love this conversation, but I wanted to acknowledge especially the 4 experiences in the area that you said was personal and how you can grow in that way. And I've found that my personal and financial have come into this beautiful synchronization. And I never thought of it this way until you brought it up. So I'm like super thankful for that. But I've decided like, why don't I put aside my own like ambitions basically of making a lot of money, focus more on work. And now I'm working with my stepdad with his company, and that's how I'm making money. And I help him in a lot of ways, relieve a lot of stress, get to learn more about finance and paper filing and just really basic kind of boring stuff, but stuff you got to know as an adult. And so that's been a lot of fun. And then at the same time, I've also joined a group that meets, I'm joined 2 new groups, actually. One of them is through church, and that's a lot of ministry work. So I get to work with other people, talk to them about their personal growth, their personal value. And it's a church that just really aligns with wanting more and for everybody, and inspiring people in that way to speak up for themselves and for their own values. And really stand for what love really means in a way that community can kind of be there for you, when it's hard to be there for yourself, And then the last group I joined was I actually have an appointment today with my new coach, and that's going to be in communication styles and understanding how to better communicate with other people. So yeah, a lot of good stuff and even more.
I don't think of a single challenge. Before I go back over to Bobby, I don't think you have a challenge communicating to anybody, anything, number one.
Thank you.
2, but there is something that shows up for me around ambitions and expectations. If anyone's writing down notes, especially you, I want you to write this down for me, Vienna, please, is that ambitions and expectations are brother and sister. Ambitions are really expectations in disguise. So you got to know that when we let go of ambitions or when we let go of expectations, we let the opportunity flow. So we'll get into that in a second, because that is a part of that GPS piece I'm going to share with you guys in a second. But I'm really happy to hear that you're focused, you're committed, but you're in action for sure. 100%. Good to see you. Good to see you. Let me get back to Bobby on Bobby part 2.
All right, brother. Sorry, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, buddy.
All right. Yeah, no, I just want to say, and I don't know if I cut off, so I'm going back to you, is that when you start, the money comes when you start living towards something else greater than yourself. When you start serving others and you lead from the heart, that's when money comes. If you're chasing a dollar, it never works. And what I've learned more from the masterminds, from all the people I hang around with in close proximity, is that when you truly serve other people, you don't have to worry about chasing a dollar, because you will leave a legacy and an impact that you never thought possible, and then the universe will grant you that money. So just wanted to share that, brother. Just wanted to say that at the closing.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to give you guys all these actionables tonight, because it's a free money mentorship call. I'm connecting with people from my past community. Looking forward to doing this a lot more often, especially in person, as we start doing live events again, which are fantastic. But let me get straight back to it. So I started off by saying financial benchmark. Certain moods, certain behaviors, certain beliefs, certain stories. We will embody strategies, conversations, values, even opinions to adopt a certain way of forming financially. What we need to find out, though, especially when people aren't happy with their financial lives or their financial life performance, is the first thing is we've got to understand what's governing our vision of that financial life experience. Because there is architecture there. There is definite mental and neuroscientific evidence that would suggest that that is what's going on. we're benchmarking. The very first place we benchmark is compared to our parents. When you started making money, you never can make as much money as your family. Y'all remember that? When you got your paper route, you know, or when you took something back to the store and you got a little deposit money back and you showed your mom and dad and they were like, ha, that's nothing, you know, compared to what they had to do, compared to what they had to make, compared to what it is that you had by comparison. We were never really truly enough. And in fact, if you ever recall your parents in their wonderful adage, you never worked as hard as they ever did. And that's just not the way it once was. But the point is that parents provided the very first benchmark. That benchmark is the very first place that you want to make sure you're clear that actually governs the architecture of your beliefs, of your moods, of your views. It's important, right? It's really important for you to all understand that. So when you see your parents today, whether you're now 10, 20, or 30 years now older, you can actually look at them and say, wow, I've outgrown the template my parents left. I actually, in fact, dwarf what my father earns or dwarf the wealth that they had created. It's not to say you're competing with them. What I'm trying to suggest is that this is your benchmarking. There is a second one, though. And by the way, if you're digging this, by all means, you know, guys, get into social media, post this stuff, share this stuff. We want to make sure that you're as excited as we are about all these things. Sharing is caring, super important. And today I just want to make sure that I said that out to everybody. So important to do that. So parents are number one. Number two, and this might really strike a chord, is our peers. You know, our parents are one thing, but we outgrow their view and their model. We just do. We go off to school, we move on out, we fall in love, or we just get on our own and we do it ourselves. Like we outgrew the coop. But when you start looking at your peers, these are people like you. You begin to look at people that are around the same age, around the same stage, and in fact, maybe even in the same state, to say that, hey, compared to them, how am I doing? Y'all get that? This is kind of where maybe you were at, Bobby, when it's like, hey, what would my peer group be? What's the average? I want to do at least that, if not better. So for a lot of people here, you got to understand is that when you start to understand you are financially, the first awareness you want to have is that you've outgrown the model in which your parents provided you. The second is that you're comparing yourself to the Joneses, the peers. The third is the people around you. That's where the Joneses live. Those are your neighbors. You see, your peers and your people are different. Your peers are, again, like-minded, around the same age, around the same stage. People, though, are parts of your community or your culture. So sometimes what will happen is that in my real estate investment communities, who are all my real estate investors here, right? It's really hard to walk into a community where you're sitting beside someone with 100 doors, right? And you just barely got 2. Or you hear someone cash flowing $1 million a month and you can't even collect the last 3 months of rent from your only tenant, right? That's my point. That's your people. It's not that you're in the same peer group because you're not the same age, you're not the same stage, you're not the same state. What you are is in the same culture, in the same community. You're going after the same thing. Those are your people, fellow real estate investors, as an example. And that happens, by the way, when you're looking at sales. When you compare your sales, for example, across other people in sales, whether you lend money or whether you're selling real estate, whatever it might be, and you compare yourself to the others in your community, you got to realize that there might be people who are better than you or greater than you, but they're 10, 20, 30 years older than you, or they've had a head start, or they've had a hand up. So it's not always a level playing field. But the last one, and this is the one that haunts people and gets them activated, is what their potential is. This is an interesting one because although we may have outgrown our parents, although we may no longer look at our peers as a marker, and although the people around us don't really, in fact, make an impact on how we go out there and play the game of money, wealth, and worth, our potential drives you. Like that's what's happening to Bobby. That's what's happening to Marlene. That's what's happening to Nima. That's what's happening to Rita. And there's others here. Like I know Keith, who just came on camera. What's up, buddy? I mean, you know the potential you've got. That's I'm taking a look. Andreas, of course. There's so many others. Like you know what you can do. You look in the mirror and say, man, is this the best I'm going to be able to do? given your potential, your ability, your God-given gifts, this is all you're going to do. So that potential piece is sometimes the one that is self-governing, right? That's self-governing, it's self-guiding, but it's always evolving. Guess what? One thing you need to know about all four of these, your potential is always being cross-checked against the other three. In other words, what would my parents say or do? Or what are my peers doing with their potential? Or what is my community doing when it comes to theirs? That's why it's one of the most daunting things for my real estate investors. If I were in a room, I wouldn't want to sit beside people who are already accomplished and have got 100 doors. I want to be beside people who want to buy 100 doors in the next 10 years or 3 years or 2 years, who are raising money at an alarming rate. I want to be around people who are vibrating with potential and they're trying to actually, in fact, make sure that their wheels hit the pavement, skidding away. Get what I'm saying? So for a lot of you here, you've got to ask yourself the question, when it comes to financial scoreboarding, when it comes to financial benchmarking, what am I comparing my financial life right now to? Is it my parents? Is it my peers? Is it my people or my potential? One little hint before I get into the most important part of the coaching call tonight, the most riveting part that I'm the most excited for, is you will never, ever live up to your potential. That's the secret. You never can, nor should you. As I once remembered saying this to Grant Cardone, an old dear friend of mine, in the world of all things 10X, 10X isn't a destination. And I said this to him. 10X is the reminder of how one must always elevate. The minute you hit it, you 10X it. The minute you hit it, you 10X it. It's always elusive. It's a guide, not a destination. Your potential is the same way. It's not like one day you'll hit the top of your potential and say, I did it. I've used all the potential I've got. Not going to happen, nor should it ever. You'll get that thumbs up? Fantastic. So let me pause for a second. And I want to just hear from a couple people. Definitely Keith, because he looks so damn relaxed. But Keith, you get what I'm saying when I talk about your potential, right? When I talk about your potential, and this is a financial life coaching conversation, and you're a money coach yourself, you know what I'm talking about when you sit down with people, map out their financial lives. You kind of hear in the background that they're modeling themselves after their parents, comparing themselves to their peers, perhaps even comparing themselves to other people. But do you get that potential piece? Do you see what it is that people always fall short of and or miss altogether?
Yeah, you know what? Sorry, excuse me. Absolutely. Like and sometimes it's potential with a mixture of a mindset that they're always missing opportunity, or opportunities always bypassing them, or the opportunities are never there for them. And a lot of that has to do with mindset of how you hear things that people say or offer or present, and you just have this automatic, that's not for me, I could never do that. That's not, my parents said that could never happen. My grandparents said you could never do that. You never use your equity in your home to invest. All you do is pay off your mortgage. Like all these things, all these stories that people have that were passed down to them, or somebody else has told them that they believe to be true because of who that person is. And they've never lived their life to create what's actually true for them. And so that's a big one that people don't realize their potential, because they just don't ever have an open mind to opportunity around them at any given time. And they're shut off. They've gotten to the point where they're just shut off from it. And that leads and drives their life.
Well, that's important, because here, and I appreciate you saying that, Keith, because here's why that's important. Who here ever notices that anytime you get conscious or aware that you're not doing enough, or you're not far enough, or you're not getting where you want to be, and you start to feel like you're shutting down? Anyone ever experienced that? You shut down, or you rescind, or you shrink, or you step back. And remember, the reason why we shrink or we get stuck or outright stop is because whatever you perceive is uncertain. That's the number one thing. It's a survival instinct. When you are confronted with uncertainty, you will automatically be set back into a default position, neuroscientifically, to simply play small. Calm down, slow down, get your mind out of that. No need to be thinking that big. Come on now. And pull back. It pulls you back. It gets you back to safe. As I've said 100 times, if I've not said it at least once, we're wired to survive, right? But you're gifted to do great things. And the counter punch is for you to always understand that there's 3 important drivers that will constantly keep you in play so that you don't settle with just getting by. You don't play just for average. That you're constantly, like Bobby just mentioned, as Keith always does, as Bill, you're searching, Vienna, as you're now currently playing, to always look at how do I just big it up? How do I just keep bigging it up? Because the bigger the step, the bigger the view, the more you shrink your default position. So let me share it with you. When you look at what it means to, in fact, really purge all these things, as for those who just joined us, please understand, we're talking about financial reinvention. This conversation came out of a conversation with a friend of mine who's 90 years of age, a billionaire in his true right. You can look him up, Frank Stronach, a huge auto part magnate. And he's now in the throes of wanting to personally and financially reinvent himself. And you think to yourself, why would you even bother at this stage in your life? And he says, because I can. In fact, the reason why he said he can is because it's not just a personal reinvention or a professional one as much as it is financial. It's generational. He wants to make an impact for generations to come. And that's what's lighting him up. That's what lights him up. He wants to do something that impacts a number of future generations. Now, as a result, most people who want more of anything is going to be confronted by existing what I call operational structures, your operational systems, your infrastructure. You've heard me say the 3 keepers. You've heard me say the mental construct. All these things are to basically say is you're governed by an originating design. And a lot of what gave you your relationship to money and how you pursue it was given to you by 4 things. The parents you had, the peers you compare yourself to, the people you try to keep up with, and the potential you relate to. If you think you've got low potential, you ain't going to real estate investment network meetings. You're not learning how to go and make money. You're not learning how to make residual income. You're not taking risks and calculating costs and attracting partners and investing in people or yourself for that matter. But when you have a great, healthy relationship with potential, risk is your friend and time is your ally. Risk is your friend and time is your ally. So the question then becomes, well, how do you hack it, Rich? How do I forge forward? How do I purge the pain of stalling myself? Here it comes. For all my coaches that are here, and I know a lot of you are, especially people like Bobby and Donna and Tracy and Nima, Chris Dennis, especially Keith, Marlene, and others. Here's what you've got to know. There are three very important ingredients that are really required to impose change, financial change of any kind. So whether you want to raise money or get something and you need them to be change or that really drives them and becomes the gravitas, the trajectory for, the force behind them wanting to really have it. That desire is not teachable. It's not transferable. We see this in marriages when they break down where someone really wants something bad and the other can't even see what they want at all. Desire is a very personal phenomenon. Without it, there is no wanting it. Without it, there's no wanting it. That's where the want has to be. Desire is important. So if you're coaching, teaching, mentoring people or wanting to be a person of influence, of impact, you've got to know that people need that desire. If you can't detect the heat from their burning desire, then you can't teach it. They can't just will it. The second, and it's very important, is to have in place the practices. And what I mean by practices, I'm talking about the daily things that someone would even do. That's comprised of conversations, routines, things that they regularly do and find themselves in to constantly be at work for that additional thing. So if you want to be a real estate investor, what's the practices that's going to take to be a real estate investor? Not monthly, not eventually, not in 17 months, but every single day, putting a little bit more time into a daily practice so it becomes a part of who you are. You got to see that practice is like kindle, right? Like wood, and desire is the flame. If you're not feeding it every day, the desire will burn out. This is why I've come across a lot of aspirational real estate investors that I met 5, 10, 15 years ago. And I say, wow, how have you been, John? And they're like, oh, fantastic, Dolan, how you been? I said, great. I said, how's your real estate portfolio? It must be huge. He's like, oh, I've just got my 3rd deal done. I go, 3rd deal done? Oh my God, like why is it taking you so long? He goes, that's life, Rich. It just gets in the way. And that's because we don't put in play the daily practice. When you don't put in the daily practices, what ends up happening is that the whole world doesn't conspire to move around you. And that brings me to the 3rd point, is environment. That environment's so important. You got to ask yourself, what's supporting you? From your husband to your wife, to your kids, to your immediate family, to your family and your other friends, your colleagues, even associates. And if you don't have anybody that you can really count on to be an accountability partner, to be your sponsor, if it were, to a greater financial life, if I may, then ask yourself this: who else could I actually share that mission with? For some of my friends in here who were graduates of the Mastery Program, you recall the Buddy Program, where we've just simply paired people up to stand for each other. And that's a part of the environment. Your environment is the physical phenomenon of the practices you keep. If I go and meet a really healthy living person, I can promise you that if I walked into their environment, there'd be no junk food, there'd be likely exercise equipment in their home, and there would likely be an environment that would be very, very akin to supporting a healthy lifestyle. You get what I'm saying? But if someone was very committed to being healthy, but their environment wasn't indicative of that, you can think of all the opposite things that would be in that space. That would be an absolute contradiction to not just the commitment, but the undermining of the desire itself. So oftentimes when people are saying, I don't get it though, Rich, I go to the programs, I've read the books, I listen to you and I follow great people, why do I not see the changes? It's because those 3 things must be in place. And it starts with a burning desire. If it doesn't keep you up at night in a good way, not a bad way, right? In a hot sweat of passion, not a cold sweat of fear. If it doesn't end up stirring your soul, then you won't move your world to adopt those practices, and you won't move your environment to adopt the practices themselves. Let me time out for a second as I'm just going to open up this chat. I want to hear from you. I had an opportunity not so long ago of being able to go to my dear friend Bobby Grassi's 50th birthday. Now, I don't mean to age him and put him on the spot, but it's an acknowledgement. I took a road trip with my dear friend and partner, Ken Kliniftakis, and for those who don't know, he's the 300-pound version of me that keeps all things Rich U rolling. And he said, let's go surprise Bobby for his birthday. Now, he's just across the border. For those who know, I generally reside in Toronto, but I have offices in New York and in Miami. And so I had no problem doing that, especially for Bobby, a very dear friend, a graduate, and a big client of ours for all things that we do and all here things at Rich U. When I went and I got a chance to meet his family, here's what astonished me. It wasn't their liquor tolerance, because it was quite impeccable. It was a late night when I got there. It was his 50th birthday after all. It wasn't just how kind and loving everyone is. Here it comes. Almost everybody in his immediate family knew who I was. Now, I'm no one famous, believe me. Even my family calls me every year and asks how to spell my name right for the greeting cards. But all kidding aside is that it's not about having amplified my name. It's about having spoken and willed and, in fact, acted out of our education in Bobby's world, our very good stuff. In other words, they had the experience of me through Bobby. They experienced Richard Dolan through Bobby Grossi, the dentist, the father, the coach, the entrepreneur, the super dad, the super husband. They experienced him. Why I'm saying that is because what's imperatively important for all of you is that when you really have a burning desire, it is like a forest fire. Everyone else catches it too. Everyone else just to ask questions about what their life could look like if they were to do what Bobby was doing. Is this not, am I accurate here in saying all this stuff, Bobby? Because I have to say, he was very careful. He didn't let me get too far because he was like this, he was carefully monitoring the stories that I was hearing from most of his people. Why I share that is this: making more money, generating more wealth, or attracting more worth is not a single person's phenomenon. It is a collective phenomenon. And when the world is lit up by your burning desire to do something, they all conspire around you to make it so. And that's what I'm saying, is that it's not an isolated event. It's not a one-man sport. It truly is a team event. So, Bobby, let me just see if there's anything else I missed from what I had said about that.
No, man. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. You're absolutely correct. I mean, I don't think there was a moment, first time, just so you guys know, the first time I ever met Richie in person was at my 50th. Right. That's the side note. But I felt like you've been my brother and family for forever, from the Grant Cardone days, guiding me through that, to you and Ken K. So no, it was accurate. I mean, you said to me, you could feel the love. And I think everybody knows how much I love and support Richie Dolan, and I love Ken K, and my family knew it. But yeah, they knew more about you probably than you even thought. I mean, I shared my knowledge of you every time. I speak of you every day with my kids. You guys you've been a great mentor of mine, Richie, and I just can't wait to one day make you as proud as you make me, my friend.
I appreciate that. Well, listen, and I just want to make sure I see this kind of like in wrapping it up, as I'm starting to see if there's any questions that anyone has of me, but I want to plant a seed. I believe right now is a great time for all of you, if you're a coach or a mentor or a trainer, is you've got to take on becoming a money coach, a financial mentor, someone who understands behavioral finance, happiness economics, investorism, that you're able to really coach to people, through people, their desire, their practices, and their environment to support them so that they don't succumb to a default position. Of all the things I've ever coached on, whether it's performance or real estate investing and whatnot, money is the one place that if you can move the needle for people, it makes a difference for them all. It makes a difference for them as fathers, as mothers, whether you're single or married or just happily searching, whether you're someone who just wants to actually, in fact, play a game where you're at your potential. I just want to say that, and that's not a plug or a pitch, because you know my style, I don't present a lot of things for sale on any of my calls. I just want to say that as a reminder that I really invite you all to really go to Rich U and take a look for yourself, the Financial Life Professional Program. I really believe that over the next 10 years, as $60 trillion passes hands from an older generation to a younger generation, there is going to be one mounting challenge for a lot of people. And it's not financial, it's not experiential, it will be existential. And if you don't believe me, just look at the history of lottery winners and how well they make out once they make a lot of money in a hurry. They go back to zero, and if not worse, quite quickly. So getting people's relationship right with money, wealth, and worth is going to be a very important role that coaches, life coaches, mentors, trainers, and the like will have to do. I understand the importance of getting people's life orientation figured out, their life purpose powerfully handled, creating a vision. But if you don't get your relationship right with money, wealth, and worth, what's it all going to be for? What's up, Marlene?
Hi, Richard. Hi, everybody. So I got to go too. I got an appointment to get to, but I just wanted to touch on desire, fire, flame, the practices, and environment, and just how important it is to, when we think about desire, it's like having that passion, having that desire. But I think that having a desire without action is nothing but just like a fleeting experience that's just going to walk away. So it's going to disappear. It's going to dissolve before the morning comes. So taking action is super important. It doesn't have to be massive action. It can be just action towards that particular desire and the results that you desire. But practices, when we think about practices, we think about anything that is going to be in alignment towards whatever that, again, that goal, that end result is. But it's not just in that department. I think it's very important to understand that practices in discipline, practices in self-respect, practices in honoring the way you live, the way you take care of yourself, the way you take care of the people around you. Following practices that can enhance your relationships is also very important, so that no matter where you go, no matter what type of impact, no matter what kind of steps you take forward in regards to that alignment, as long as you are doing, as long as you're growing in your character, I think that that's also very important, because you're leaving a mark along the way, along your journey, your path. So, and then the other one is environment. And that's, again, another one that we think about, oh, you got to be in the right room. You got to get in the right rooms with the right people, and you got to go to the right places, and you got to surround yourself with, like-minded people. But again, we're focusing so much on that, which is over there, instead of understanding that environment really begins with our own environment, like the way you take care of your car, the way you take care of yourself, the way you take care of your hygiene, the way you take care of your room, that sort of thing. It starts with the little things. And so I just wanted to touch on that, because I think a lot of people just, again, they think of what's out there and they forget about the principles, where everything really originates, where the magic shall begin. So that's what I just wanted to mention.
No, I'm glad that you did. And I'm glad that you said all that. It's important. I know you're about to go, but I see my good friend, Mark Jean, business machine from Los Angeles. This conversation was really good for someone like you. Here's a guy who's a successful business owner, but you know what? It's a time for professional reinvention. And when you reinvent yourself professionally, you reinvent yourself financially. And then it opens up this generational conversation. So it all quite frankly links together. Super important. So listen, folks, if you want more information on just what I do and how I do it, here's all I'm going to say. I know that we're really excited about really turning the world on to getting people help from a money mentorship, financial coaching perspective. We are turning up everything that we do on the topic of money, and I know I can't do it alone. That's why I can count on people like Bobby Grassi to do a lot of coaching for the dentists that we'll be working with. I want to be talking to business owners with Mark Jean. I want to be able to work with Dr. John Huber, with doctors who are doing things in a very holistical way. The world goes on and on. I believe that if we were to create a global army of people who can provide money mentorship and financial coaching, it could really move the needle over the next decade. That will not only reinvent the way in which you can play your money game, but really help people reinvent the way in which they play and kill theirs. Make sense? So if you want to learn more, let us know. There's zero pressure. I'm not going to put up any slide and say act right now. For those who are coaches, you know what I mean. For those who are thinking about one, that's the domain in which you should conquer in. So I hope today was of value to you guys. Did you find today of great use, good insight? To paraphrase, it's all about reinvention. Remember those domains: personal, professional, financial, and generational. Generational is about them. It's not about you. It's bigger than you. And that gives rise to a great financial reinvention that once you do that could reshape who you are personally and what you become professionally. Now, when you do that, you've got to always be aware that there are governing principles that will keep you actually emulating your earliest renditions of what it means to be financially successful. Your parents had something to do with it. Your peers have something to do with it. The people around you have something to do with it, and your relationship to your potential. If you want to crack it, if you want to outgrow it, if you want to, if I dare to say, 10x it, you've got to activate the three most important ingredients. Get that desire going. Yeah. Shift the daily practices so they become a part of your natural existence and phenomenon. And third, make sure your environment reflects the desire you've got to grow rich in the things that matter most. And that's when life will shift. I hope you all got that. That was the whole hour right there, just in 3 minutes. So there you go. Lateef, good to see you, man. Tracy, as always. Bill, we got to talk. You're right. You owe me lunch. Chris Dennis, I owe you a chat. Donna, you owe me a hug. Danielle, good to see you. Hope everything's all right. Bobby, don't make me say it. And Nima, Michelle Mupo in the house. Good to see you. I see you, girl. And for everyone else, thank you so much for being with me on this fine evening. I hope you're well. I hope you're great. Stay great. Stay blessed. But more importantly, stay you. God bless everyone.